What is up, everybody, and welcome to a weekend edition of the All NBA Show, powered by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet at FanDuel.com/AllNBA. As always, on the weekend, I'm joined by my esteemed colleague Marc Stein of the Stein Line Substack and of DLLS Mavs podcast. Marc, you got a big week for us, man. Luka's return is upon us.
Yeah, and it's already kind of taking over, soaking up all the oxygen. It's still a few days away, Wednesday. But yeah, man, I've covered some crazy regular season games in this circumstance. I was in Oklahoma City the first time Durant came back as a Warrior. Like 6 weeks into my beat writing life. And this is one of the most memorable games I've ever covered in my career. Dominique Wilkins going back to Atlanta as a Los Angeles Clipper. That's one that will always stay with me again because Dominique got traded to the Clippers. Literally, I was on the beat for 10 days when that happened. I was so in over my head, so not ready for a trade of that magnitude. And I was still kind of starstruck by Dominique because I had watched his whole career as a high school kid, and now I'm covering this guy.
Wow.
And to go back to the Omni for that game, and the Clippers won that game. Dominique went for 36 and 10. I will never, ever forget that one. But this Luka return to Dallas, I think it's unlike any of these games that we've ever seen. You know, the Dominique one does surprisingly have a little bit of similarity to it because the Hawks made the choice to trade Dominique, but that's in the modern NBA when we talk about Shaq going from Orlando to the Lakers or LeBron going from Cleveland to Miami or Durant going from Oklahoma City to Golden State. It's always the player's choice in those cases. This was the Mavericks deciding to end this, and that's why Wednesday night I really think is going to be a scene unlike any other that I've ever witnessed in more than 30 years of doing this.
Well, I was gonna save it for later, but we might as well go into it because honestly, it's just
sorry,
so broad.
My bad. I wasn't supposed to launch into all that.
It's fine. We have a bunch of stuff we're gonna get to, including some revenge games. Marc Stein been covering the league a long time. No shortage of big time revenge games. We'll get to that a little bit later. We'll also talk about Carmelo Anthony in the Hall of Fame. And we're going to get to Taylor Jenkins. But I just want to keep pulling on this because we already have momentum towards it. But yes, Luka finally making the return. This has been, I have to imagine this has been the most drawn out thing ever because the trade happens. Obviously, it's raw. And we're 2 months removed from it. And it's still raw. And this almost feels in some weird way like, I don't even want to say closure, but hopefully the end of the beginning with it. That's at least how I feel. Like, hopefully this is the last of the first chapter of the Luka departure.
Yeah, I have to say, living here and kind of like, to me, it's almost anytime there seems to be any semblance of a turn the page scenario, something else happens, something else is said to just bring it all back. And this, like, my stock line for this has been that with Luka Doncic and how much Mavericks fans loved him, it's 77 stages of grief for Mavericks fans to lose him, and this will be the hardest one yet because to have to see him come to Dallas in purple and gold and actually experience that firsthand, like there's no readiness steps you can take for that, I don't think.
Is Dirk going to be in attendance? He was in attendance for the debut in LA. Is he going to be in attendance for this one?
He has not firmly stated his intentions, but my gut instinct is that yes, he has not been at a home game since the trade. I have to think this is one that would bring him out. We won't ultimately know until April 9th, next Wednesday, but I would think, yeah, this is one that would be hard for him to miss. And yeah, you're right. I mean, he was there in Los Angeles. I made my way to Los Angeles to see Luka's first game as a Laker because I've covered every dribble of his NBA career. I just couldn't imagine not being there for his first his first act as a Laker, and Luke and Dirk made that trip as well as a show of support for Luka and the friendship that those guys built. They played that. That's the thing. It's, you know, the easiest way to sum it up is, it's like the Mavericks traded Dirk's little brother. I mean, these guys actually had that pass the torch season, which you never see that. I mean, it's one thing to say one player passes the torch to another, but they literally had the one season of overlap. But they've become much closer in the years since they played together. The year they played together, Luka's a rookie, Dirk's in year 21. They weren't super close that season. It really all happened after Dirk retired and then started becoming, I think, an off the court mentor to Luka.
He's got to be there, and it's going to be an emotional night. And I think I know how Luka will approach that game. And in fact, Luka just had a rough game last night, for the Lakers and a loss to the Warriors. And part of me wonders if this is a little, as we get closer to that game, everything else kind of fades to the background. I know these are important games for the Lakers, but how do you anticipate Luka is going to approach that game?
Well, he rises to the occasion on the big stage and has done so many times that it's hard for me to imagine him not doing so and not just playing a really strong game. But, you're right. He has been going through it here last 3-4 games. Really, when LeBron was out, the Lakers did find some offensive rhythm, and Luka did have a string of big games. But, these last 3-4 games, it hasn't been great for the Lakers. And, they've stumbled a bit here, and the Warriors just gave an illustration of, I think it was really interesting just to hear Draymond Green talk after about just the confidence and belief that Jimmy Butler has infused in that team. The Warriors they've begun to carry themselves like the old Warriors just by virtue of adding Jimmy Butler. He really has meant that much of a difference to them in the swagger department. So the Lakers are not having a great week. But again, Luka is such a showman, and there is going to be such an outpouring of love for him from fans who are still not happy about this trade. And I do want to say Anthony Davis, again, has played really well here. He just authored a masterpiece against Atlanta and, made the game-winning shot at home. This has nothing to do with Anthony Davis. Anthony Davis has said all the right things since becoming a Maverick. He's had his first game against Houston, this game against Atlanta. He's put some big performances together. He is trying everything he can do to move this franchise forward. But I just think Luka's return and the way the fans are going to react to it's gonna, like I said, I feel like I can't, like everybody thinks, I can't forecast it. I can't predict it, because it's going to be, I think it is going to be organic and natural, and it's going to be wild. It is going to be a wild, I've been lucky in my life to see a lot of really memorable games. And if you force me to, I could sure draw up a list of, the 5 or 6 regular season games that I will never forget. I mean, right off the top, I talked about that Dominique game when I was really young and just starting out. Magic Johnson's comeback in 1996 when Magic played his first game after a nearly 5-year absence. And then the second game after that, the Jordan and Pippen Bulls came to town to take on Magic. I will never forget that night. Like I said, I could do this all day if I really wanted to make a list. But I'm telling you, I'm really trying to go into this with an open mind because I think it's going to be wild.
Well, I want to be careful here because I'm not trying to say something incendiary. This isn't, but Anthony Davis, to me, since he's arrived in Dallas, has played with a sense of pride. The guy that got traded, I'm the other guy in this deal. And it seems like he's taken ownership of this, of like, I get where the fan base is at, but I'm going to go out there and play hard for you. And I think the teammates as well maybe have a sense of this. So I think Luka's going to come out and really give a best punch. But to be honest with you, I kind of also think Dallas is going to be ready for that game. I think that's going to be a very emotional game for the players on Dallas. And that's why I think this game's going to be so good, is because I think they want to make a statement, not to Luka, not really to anyone in particular, but just make a statement in that game the same way that Luka's going to want to make a statement in that game. Do you agree?
Yeah, there's no question. I mean, Anthony Davis is also playing with a chip on his shoulder. He missed 18 games after that incredible debut. He was a two-way monster against Houston and got hurt in that game, had to miss the next 18 games and just absorb, hear all the rhetoric about what a terrible trade this is, and a lot of talk in Dallas, people saying AD should not come back. The Mavericks should tank. The Mavericks should focus on draft position for the rest of the season. Why is AD coming back? Obviously, I think Anthony Davis does have a lot of pride, and he doesn't love hearing this conversation about what a terrible trade this is. And he is close with Nico Harrison. I mean, this is why Nico Harrison targeted Anthony Davis as the main return in the trade. So I think he realizes the incredible criticism and heat that Nico Harrison has faced since this trade. So I think he's trying to step up for him as well. But yeah, I think you're totally right. Anthony Davis is going to want to, he's going to want to bring it as well. And, you know, he talked this week about, you know, the Mavs lost at home Monday night to Brooklyn. Anthony Davis was passive, not really a factor in that game. And then Wednesday night against Atlanta, he was back to the guy. He looked like the player who was doing everything he possibly could in that debut against Houston on February 8th. And Anthony Davis spoke about this at length after the game, that I've just got to let it go. I feel good. I can't have these what ifs in my head, holding back, worrying about what might happen. If I'm going to play, I have to let it rip. So let's see if he got past a mental hurdle with that Atlanta performance.
The other story this is going to be a great game, man. I can't wait. It's going to be one of the games of the year, I think. Even if it's not a close game, it'll still have attention that's worth tuning in for. So that one's going to be incredible. And it's an important game for both teams. I mean, it's funny, the narratives, all these different narratives that weave in and out of it makes it a great story, but both teams need a win really bad. For the Lakers, their entire seeding might come down to that one game. And of course, Dallas is trying to get home court advantage in that first play-in game to give them a shot of just making it into the playoffs. So huge stakes, tons of narratives. It'll be a great one. Marc Stein will be covering it both on Substack and at DLLS Mavs. I want to ask you, though, we haven't talked since the Taylor Jenkins firing. And people like me, just watching this, I step back and I go, that is an insane firing this late in the season. Any coach, if you're in the playoffs this late in the season to be fired, I think is an insane firing. But am I wrong? He seems like a great coach. I think they play a smart brand of basketball. Nobody thought they were going to be as high in the standings coming into the year, especially if you told them all the injuries they would have. So what am I missing here?
No, you are absolutely right. This is, just from the historical perspective, one of the most shocking coaching changes we've ever seen. Now, people in Memphis, and they would rightly point to this, after last season, Zach Kleiman and the Grizzlies front office, they basically made Taylor Jenkins change out his whole coaching staff. 5 coaches were ushered out. He had to bring in all new assistants who were essentially chosen by the front office. And that sent a signal right there to the rest of the league. Okay, Taylor Jenkins is in some trouble here. Taylor Jenkins needs to have a really good season to keep his job. You don't see that. And then not only was it a dramatic change of staff, but, they brought in Noah LaRoche to install this new offense that Memphis ran this year, which, went away from ball screens and dribble handoffs. It was all about movement and cutting. And then they also brought in Thomas Asalo, who is now the interim coach. They brought him in from Europe to really focus on pace and, again, motion. So they went through this offensive overhaul. So if you've been following the Grizzlies closely and you see all this and you know all this, and then you throw in the rumbles all season long that John Morant is not loving this new offense, that John Morant wants pick and roll touches and wants just more touches in general. So when you talk about all that stuff, you can say, well, the firing wasn't surprising given all that. But again, the timing is historically, we have never in the NBA, never seen a winning team fire its coach this late in the season. And I got to give a shout out, Karthika Uthaya Kumar, researcher extraordinaire in Toronto. She helped me with this. Incredible research she did, because let me tell you, there are coaching databases in the NBA. There ain't none. There's not reliable places to go to get this information. And StatGeeks did incredible research on this to help me go through this, because the only firing I could remember that was anywhere reminiscent of this, Paul Silas let go with 18 games to go in Cleveland in LeBron James' second season. The Cavs were 34-30. They finished 42-40. They narrowly missed the playoffs. That was the only firing we could find of a team with a winning record firing a coach. That was with 18 games to go. Taylor Jenkins was fired with 9 games to go. And in all of Karthika's research, everything she found, any firing in the NBA, in league history, with 15 games to go or less, was by a losing team, a team with a losing record. I had forgotten this one. This is one I should have remembered. The great Hubie Brown was fired by the Atlanta Hawks with 3 games left in the 80-81 season. But the Hawks had a losing record. The Hawks were not a team that had a shot at a top 4 seeding. So I am with you, no matter what signs you can point to that we saw, whatever signs of discontent, and potential chaos there were in Memphis this season, it still doesn't, nothing gets you ready for a firing of a coach by a winning team headed for the playoffs, flirting with a 50-win season with 9 games to go in the regular season. It just never happens like this in the NBA.
Yeah, it is crazy, man. It is unprecedented. And yet, I have to wonder, he's going to have suitors. To the best of your knowledge, is this something that was just a conflict of coach and team, coach and player, or players perhaps? Or is there something maybe to be concerned about? I'm almost in a weird way. I think he's a great coach. I think this firing is crazy. But now I almost question, is he, he seems like the number one guy on the market, but it almost makes me wonder if there's something I'm not seeing.
Well, look, he did a lot of winning in Memphis. It was his first head coaching job. He's the only head coach that John Morant had known until this change was made and Thomas Asalo was installed as the interim coach. So, I think he had a great run in Memphis. But again, when the front office makes you change out all those assistants and then basically forces you to run a new offense that isn't your offense, the coach is in trouble. And look, there are people who will say he lost the locker room. There are people who say they had to make this switch. And they also did let LaRoche go, which was surprising because he was just there as a first-year assistant, really in charge of this new offense. So it was both Taylor Jenkins and Noah LaRoche who they ousted here. Is this to try, Thomas Asalo, there are a lot of people who say, yes, in Paris, he ran a motion offense and an offense that was built on pace, and offensive rebounding was a big emphasis, but he's also known as a pick and roll guy, which is something that should appeal to John Morant. But my main question here is, if there were issues, why did you wait till there were 9 games left? Weren't those same issues happening with 15 games left or 20 games left? Again, it's just so late in the game. It's hard for me to project his immediate future prospects, speaking of Taylor Jenkins, because we don't know yet what openings will be there. But look, he had a great run in Memphis. I think he's very highly regarded. I think we will see him as an NBA head coach again in this league someday. I can't tell you where today, but yeah, this was the whole way this played out is a very atypical story in the coaching game.
I want to wrap up today, Mark, with some Stein stories. Have you tap into the rich history that you have in this league. And I'm actually going to start with one Carmelo Anthony because it was leaked today. We're recording this on Friday. It was leaked today that he will be announced shortly. We think tomorrow on Saturday that he will be a first ballot Hall of Famer and inducted into the Basketball Hall of Fame. What is your maybe favorite memory or how you are going to remember Carmelo Anthony?
I really enjoyed covering him. I always felt like, it's impossible not to look at that draft class. You think of them all. LeBron, Wade, Bosh, Melo. Yes, we still think of Darko as well being the number 2 pick. I mean,
You really
it's
do.
hard not to think of them as a group, but I always found Melo to be the easiest one for me to interview, the most revealing. I thought he always I was at the New York Times when he was in Oklahoma City, and I remember him giving me a great interview there, and said something to the effect of, I wish I remember the exact quote, but man, Phil Jackson traded me for a bag of chips. I mean, I remember that quote got some good play, and I just felt like, again, this is not about his game, and he was a supreme scorer, great player, an unquestioned Hall of Famer for me, because, again, let's not forget what he did in college, too. He did a lot in the NBA. He did a lot on the Olympic stage, and, he had a great NBA career. So, I mean, to me, there was no question he's a first ballot Hall of Famer. And also, when you ask me my memories, I do a lot of international basketball, so I got to see the best of Melo. I mean, FIBA Melo was the real deal. When he had the 40-plus point game against
That was a
Nigeria in like
fun
15
game.
minutes of playing time, I was there for that. I remember being in Rio talking to him about his Olympic legacy. Because he had so much more success on the Olympic stage if you're going to base it on team stuff compared to, he obviously didn't win a championship in the NBA as a player, but great resume. And selfishly for me, always a very willing talker, which, that in
Yeah,
the
it means
media game,
something.
that's what we want. I mean, he was always going to tell you what was on his mind. And,
Yeah.
I always enjoyed covering him.
Yeah. The last one I have for you, be in light of Luka Doncic, a potential revenge game, or maybe I should phrase it, Anthony Davis, potential revenge game coming up on Wednesday. What are some of your favorite revenge games where somebody faced their former team, especially bonus points if there was a little bad blood between how it happened? What are some ones in your history covering the league that you remember most?
Well, I did already kind of give it away when I talked about Dominique going back to the Omni. That was personally significant for me because as a high school kid, you know, that was just when TBS was becoming a big deal and TNT. And so we did get some bonus Hawks coverage that in Southern California that you wouldn't have normally expected. So one of my best friends in high school just worshiped Dominique. So Dominique in my group of high school friends who love the NBA, Dominique was always just a massive, massive discussion. The dunk contest was huge, his dunk contest battles with Jordan. So for me as a young writer to be covering the Clippers when Dominique Wilkins was traded to the Clippers stunningly, and then to go to the Omni for the first and only time in my life and cover Dominique going back and going for 36 and 10, that was a big deal in my career, something that I will never forget. But because that's just my selfish take.
Yeah.
I actually did a collab on Friday with Basketball Reference, and I asked them, "Can you guys help me? I want to do a much more complete history of the best revenge game performances." And I just got to tell you, I really think you should go read this piece. Basketball Reference found stuff that I had forgotten, like Danny Ainge scoring 39 against Boston the first time after the Celtics traded him to the Kings, Dikembe Mutombo blocking 9 shots for Philly the first time he played Atlanta, Bradley Beal, who's taken
I
all
know this
kinds
one.
of heat all season.
Sure.
Do you realize Bradley Beal's 43 points in his first trip to Washington in a Phoenix Suns uniform? That is the highest scoring game, according to this Basketball Reference research,
That's crazy.
on revenge games. And Steve Smith making 8 threes against Portland the first time he played the Blazers as a member of the Spurs. And like I said, this article just has all kinds of these memories, and a lot of them I had forgotten. And I did, just for you, I did even include a full listing of all of Allen Iverson's games against the Sixers after being traded to the Nuggets. So there's all kinds of stuff in this piece.
Just for me. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
for
the
you.
Stein line, guys. Go. I was gonna say that's the Stein line. So you can check it out. He just published it. You know which one is this? I don't know if this counts, but Shaq Kobe, their first matchup after the breakup, to me is one of the all timers. And I don't know who it was a revenge game for. I think for both guys, it was a revenge game that lived up to the hype. So that's the first one that comes to mind. For me.
that was on Christmas. I mean, that was
on Christmas. Yep, special
no
night,
question.
Man.
Yeah, so that's what this piece was, to try to, like, the first time after you are traded, how you fare against your old team. So yeah, there's a lot in this piece that I'm not, of course, because my memory is fading at my old age. So I can't remember it all, even though I just wrote it and published it. But I promise you there is plenty there for Adam Mares and co.
Oh man, you guys got to check it out. This was great stuff, Mark. Get some rest this weekend. Maybe sleep in a little bit if you can.
No,
you got a
no
big
chance
week next week. Hey man, sleep in. I'm telling you.
I got multiple stories to finish, and I'm actually doing. I saw Dominique Wilkins this week because he was in Dallas to broadcast. He's on the Hawks broadcast team with Bob Rathbun, and they did Hawks at Mavs. So I had a chance to talk to Dominique.
Oh, that's so cool.
And talk to him about this. So that's one of the pieces I'm doing before this game, is that covering that game in 1994, many years and pounds ago, and now getting ready for this Luka game. So
we hope you guys all enjoyed this weekend edition of the All NBA show. We love doing it. We got one more week of the regular season. Next time me and Stein link up, we're going to be talking about playoffs. We're going to be in playoff mode next time we connect. Everybody, thanks for tuning in. Make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss anything. Check out Marc Stein's Substack where you can get that story and many, many more. Everybody, have a great weekend. We'll see you next time.
We all city like the mayor.